Great morning, everyone, and welcome to the Piper Academy to the morning market report. Hopefully, you guys are having a great morning. It says, "Hey, average crypto Joe, explain it, please." Absolutely, my friend. So there's a couple of news out there. We're gonna go over those, and absolutely, we're gonna take a look at what's going on. If you already have seen the thumbnail, well, more tensions are building up between China and the U.S. Well, politics, what can we do about them, right? Nonetheless, let me get started with you guys because you guys are the most important part of the show. So, average crypto Joe, what is up, my friend? Welcome to the show. We have broke a Nodi Nero. Oh, broken. Oh, man. I don't know why I'm not reading right. Where are my glasses? Here they are. Let me just wear them. There we go. Brokoshi no dinero. What is up, my friend? Welcome. How's it going? Alexander G in the house. How is it going? Who else we got in here? All said. Good morning, all said. How is it going, my friend? Nice to have you around. So let's get started, guys, and let's jump right into the news. All right, let's get started here. Just in, Vice President JD Vance says Bitcoin is secure, safe from fraud, and a digital store of value. So what a change in narrative, right? I mean, a couple of years ago, we've been hearing that Bitcoin is being used to finance crime, right? Just used by criminals, so on and so forth. And well, they were also saying that it was untraceable. I mean, come on. I think we know the blockchain is just basically there. You just need to tie one to another, but you can trace every piece of Bitcoin out there. I think that is one of the most secure there. Assets in. Hey, what's up, Drew? How is it going, man? Welcome. So, yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is one of the most secure assets out there on security, on tracement, right? So, yeah, I know that we can be using some coin scramblers, which I believe there's restrictions in this US. Don't hold me accountable for that comment. Not quite 100% sure on that. But yeah, I mean, I remember that we gave a news that they were planning to maybe ban them or have restriction on those. So yeah, I think this is going to be very, very bullish for Bitcoin if we start seeing the US government actually start implementing actions with Bitcoin, right? So maybe start announcing constant purchases of the strategic reserve. Maybe if we see that strategic reserve being held, who's going to be holding that? Is it going to be a private wallet? Is it going to be a hot wallet? Is it going to be an exchange? We'll see how that goes, right? But in the meantime, let's go to Watch Good. Just in, and this is part of the thumbnail. President Trump says China has violated its tariff agreement with the USA. So we can see pressure building up in here. This is to be expected, right? I mean, at the end of it all, well, every single country is looking for their own good, especially both China and the US, which are they are just giants in the economy, right? I mean, they have very different regimes, we can call them like that. But every one of those is pushing to its own side, right? At the end of it all, I do trust, believe, right? Think so, hopeful, please God help us here, right? That they come into an agreement, because this is just not good for any party here. At the end of it all, I think we need to work together as the globe that we are, but of course that it needs to be balanced, right? And we're seeing that balance being redrawn, lines of balance being redrawn in here, and that like push and hold kind of situation with both China and the US fighting for economical power there. So yeah, absolutely, something that we've been seeing across the board here. Remember, we're just one tweet away for everything kind of like a changing changing faces, a changing direction. And who would have said, man? I don't know. For me, it is kind of like a mind blown right now. And let me know how's the volume now. I just adjusted it. I thought I was clipping. Let me know. Thumbs up for good volume. Thumbs out for better as before. So I lowered my volume. Let me know if it was better before. And yeah, I mean, who would have thought? I mean, my head, it barely fits that now presidential announcements and important stuff, it's being conducted over social media. I mean, Twitter, right? I mean, who would have thought? I mean, I think even if we think into, I don't know, you give it a name, Metroflog, right? Come on. Do you know, do you remember who was the president back when Metroflog was a thing? Or I don't know, guys. If you are old enough like me, do you guys remember Mirk or what was it? MIRC, right? So that social media channel, right? Or do you guys remember? I don't know which one was very popular before Facebook. I don't know, just go out on Facebook and Facebook post something, right? And then the thing just changes nationwide directions, right? Well, in this case, happens to be Twitter, right? Very, I don't know, fantastic, scare. Dude, I'm just speechless. Why? Because we're seeing a social media, right, taking so much relevance, right? I mean, and to me, I would say, well, I better watch the news for the actual channels of importance from each country. But no, now we're all looking at a social media. Don't know if that MySpace, yeah, MySpace before Facebook, yeah, exactly. I just have the Spanish names on my head, but yeah, MySpace was MySpace, just so you know. So, absolutely, imagine that just going to MySpace, right? President, what was President? What? No, it was not Obama. It was what? What president was back in the day? Not quite remember. Bush father maybe, or something like that. Bush senior. I don't know, but who would have thought that, right? Something that it really surprised me is out of the age of Donald Trump that he's just managing that well with the technology. You gotta give that right to the man. All right, let's move into the news. Clinton or Bush? Yeah, Clinton. I don't know. I'm just trusting you guys in here, but yeah, I think so. So let's move into the news in here. Oh well, wait. Let me instead of going that way. There it is. Hey, sorry. So breaking news: U.S. trade President Greek says China's behavior, and this is a little more explain on what's going on, right, is completely unacceptable, right? And the U.S. is very concerned with China's non-compliance on trade. So what's going on here? We need to start looking at what's going to be the next taking action steps. What is it China going to be saying? I mean, this is just half a couple of minutes in here. Well, no, sorry, it was 2 hours ago. But we'll see. I haven't seen any replies from China directly. We'll see. We'll see, because remember that the statements from China has been increasing in loudness, if that makes sense, in loudness or seriousness, right? Last time I think they said that they were ready for whatever the U.S. wanted to take that tariff thing, right? And then thanks God that things cooled off for a little bit, right? But yeah, I mean, things are getting heated in here. Hopefully we can cool it off. Oh man, why can't we go back at, I don't know, just having a coffee and working it out, right? Of course, that's not realistic, but I hope it was. All right, let's move into the news in here. Breaking April PCE, and we're getting into the numbers right now. PCE inflation, the Fed's preferred inflation measure falls to 2.1%. Nice. All right, inflation going downwards. That is fantastic. Below expectations of 2.2. Core PCE inflation falls to 2.5, in line with expectations of 2.5. PCE inflation is now at its lowest level since September 2024. All eyes are on the Fed. Yeah, absolutely. What is the Fed going to be doing? Well, we need to know. We'll have to see, because remember what I mentioned, you guys, that over time, and let me just bring this up. Let me go to Bitcoin and let's take a look at our CME grouping here. Remember, as the time goes by, I think that we're going to be seeing a couple of shipments in here. I believe, I speculated, right, that we're going to be having a couple of news. So we don't quite yet see the results, but look at that, still 97 on current zone. So minutes did not get, well, I feel that it did not give such a great direction of where we're heading. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out. In the meantime, we are looking at you, Fed. We are looking at you. No pressure, no pressure. All right, breaking U.S. Goods impacts fall negative 19.8, so they fall 19 points below in April as President Trump's reciprocate tariff. Oh man, we'll see how that plays out because remember we're not out of that out of blue. Just now, just today, well, a new tweet emerges, and we'll see how the response is, right? Effectively held trade with many countries. This marks the largest drop in history in U.S. goods imports. Well, that is actually not surprising at all. Right? I mean, how many tariffs we got? I mean, what were we expecting if we're just not having imports, right? Because the things get much more higher. Let me explain you something here. I don't know if you have thought about this or have seen any videos about this, but who pays the tariffs first, right? It's not you. This is not you. Actually, you are barely going to be noticing those tariff prices like being applied to you. Where you're going to be noticing it is less goods in the supermarket or less goods out there to be choosing from, and well, then you're just going to go for the less expensive version, which usually is going to be US or your nation-based product, right? There's something here that we need to look into, right? So let's do a quick parenthesis in here and let's squeeze in a concept which is taking advantage of the consumer or spreading the earnings on or the margins gains on a product. When you don't have a competition so aggressive, well then what do? You know you are the least expensive, right, or the less expensive option, but you still can play with the margins now that you don't have that, I don't know, Chinese brand, Mexican brand, or anything other brand breathing on your neck, right? So the thing is that I think that we also need to look into what's going to happen with that. It's a great opportunity for the U.S. market to thrive at this point if they can offer goods at a high quality, and of course we are expecting at a slightly higher price point, right? But what's going to happen if they start taking advantage of that? Well, that is a news that we still need to be give in the future. But so far, well, if you put on tariff, let's just say like for example in Mexico in avocados, well then what's going to happen? Who's going to import those avocados? Let me ask you that question, right? So is that you call, hey OC bro, I want to take some breakfast tomorrow and I want my tacos to have some Mexican avocados. Send me some, right? No, of course not. So we don't send you like right away one-to-one avocados, right? Usually you go to the market, to the supermarket, you go some places, right? Some food organic, whatever places. If you do that, not judging, right? And then what you do, you get your avocados out of the supermarket, right? So who paid for those avocados before you got them? Let me ask you that question. Let me read you guys in the comments. Who paid for those avocados before you got them? Of course, the supermarket, right? That being said, Walmart, I don't know, Sam's Club, Costco, I don't know, man, Macy's. I don't know if Macy's says avocados. I don't think so. I don't know. Gap, yeah, of course. I know. I'm just joking with you. But I mean, yeah, the supermarket pays for the goods before you do, right? So what happens in there? They need to look at their balance sheets. So they need to go, all right, what is the current price with tariff included with the avocados, Mexican avocados, right? The farmer. Kind of. All right, that is another topic that I really want to go into because you kind of like had nailed one important point in there. But yeah, unrealistic to get organic avocados. I don't know. Kind of. I mean, I do get them. Don't get me wrong. I have an avocado tree. Local is not the same one that you get. It's slightly different, bigger and greener, and it's not black at the outside. And I just grow them in my backyard. So yeah, I do get them. Let me say, can I send you seeds? Maybe that'll be fantastic. I mean, to complete honesty, I think that if you get an organic avocados, you can grow. Oh man, avocados one of my favorite fruits. Sorry about that. Just driving. I haven't had breakfast. I think you can notice that, right? We're talking about food, bro, and I don't have Piper to cover me what I eat, man. All right, I got organic. Nice, love to see that. Absolutely love it. All right, so who's gonna pay for that? Drew says the farmer. Kind of, they grew it, right? Yes, they paid it, but that would be the outsider farmer, right? But when it's already in your country or about to be imported, and this is the thing, the tariff usually they don't get applied to non-existent products, if that makes sense. Let me explain in that because that's gonna be this kind of like something that we don't think about, right? There's a change that we need to kind of like look for in through. Because you're gonna be seeing this old news like, yeah, it's gonna affect us, so on, so forth, and so forth, and so forth, but not the actual way that you might be expecting. They explain it. Technically, yes, right? But practically, no. So let's continue with that quick explanation, and then we move into the news, right? Into another news. But here's the thing. So the Walmart goes, all right, how much it costs me to import those, right? I need to pay the tariff because I am the one importing them, right? So, all right, maybe it's too expensive. Let's talk to the farmer. Well, not actually the farmer, the middleman, right? There's enterprises or there are companies that they dedicated to pay the farmer, right? And then grab that product and push it into the States along with Walmart, along with Sam's, along with whatever whatever the supermarket you go to, right? Give me the other names so I can also not say Walmart that many times. Let me know, what is the supermarket you go at? Not sponsors, of course, right? But the point is that, all right, we're going to be dividing the tariff between you, the importer, right? The Mexican importer, and me, Walmart. All right, so what is going to be the deal? I can buy you that much volume. Are you ready to lose me as your customer? And the Mexican producer says, not really. So who did they actually go and hit with? Well, you know that my friend Drew, the farmer, right? The Mexican farmer in this case. So they go to the farmer and they say, hey, I'm not going to be buying you what you already have produced. And then the Mexican intermediate man or middleman says, you want to lose me? And well, they just kind of like, all right, I already grew it. I already has spent the seeds. I already has spent into the growing stations. I already have spent into the fertilizants, right? Or however you call them. And then also I've already collected them. So am I just going to let it go to waste? Or I can just sell them at whatever price it's going to be? Well then, as we all do, well, whatever. Just take them, and then I move my production from avocados to another stuff that is not tariff-fied, if that makes sense, all right? Or something, maybe I look into local commercial commerce, right? Or whatever. So what happens in there? The tariff, it only represents a couple of cents in the dollar on your pocket because they import it, right? I think the prices usually are very competitive still, even with 100% tariff. And then, well, then they go, all right, how are the projected sales on this? Is it worth negotiating with a Mexican producer or middleman, right? If it's so, let's negotiate, right? And it happens what I just explained. And then it goes to your shelf, and then you'll see a smaller batch in there, right? So they buy a smaller batch, and then you go, all right, let's go here. What would I rather pay more for this, I don't know, characteristical avocado? Or would I rather pay less for maybe this less, I don't know, tasty, right? Because of the climate things that you might be able to grow it, right? Like, for example, me trying to grow strawberries in South Mexico, right? I absolutely can. But are they going to be that delicious? Of course they're not, right? Climate control changes, right? Or I can go for hydroponic avocados. Well, that actually kind of can cost way much more, right? So are you going to be paying hydroponic, or are you going to be paying Mexican, or are you going to be paying local? So your answer might depend on the product, right? We all know that. But the truth of the matter it is, all right, at the end of the day, what did it sold? Did it actually work? All right, let's go back and import more, right? Maybe we can just put a little bit more of a margin there, so we do not just annihilate our producers, right? And there is that little fight. So actually, Tariff, you pay them in other ways. You pay them actually a little bit within your taxes and not within the product itself. Because if Walmart absorbs that part of the tariff, that 50%, let's just say, of the tariff, right? And then the other 50% Mexican producers, how are they going to be pushing it to you? Well, then they push it into the price, or they push it into some other stuff, right? So that is going to be another conversation, how they push things into different countries. But just so you know, that is how tariff affects you. But that also opens up a window. All right, between, let's just say, the hydroponic and local, there's a little gap in there. There's a little niche that needs to be filled, right? So cheaper or not that expensive, but also not hydroponic expensive like stuff, right? Let's go to products that they are not being grown or they are manufactured, right? Important part in here, it is like, all right, so now let's talk about China, right? Now let's talk about China, a little bit farther away, right? It can also apply to food, but let's just change a little bit of the narrative in here, right? Let's make it a little more fun. So let's go and let's say that you love, I don't know, what do you love? Rubber duckies, right? Let's just say that you love rubber duckies and we all buy rubber duckies, right? So this president goes and says, 100% on Chinese rubber duckies. All right, perfect. Cut the production, guys, in the meantime, right? So what happens, what if it's already out there, it's being sold at the same price? Maybe, like, for example, Amazon, shame on you, Amazon, not a sponsor, don't contact us, bro. Yeah, maybe. If the price is right. No, just kidding. Amazon, get out of here. So Amazon rising and hiking their prices even before they actually cherry hits the markets, right? Well, they're just taking advantage of that, and that was a part of what I was mentioning at the beginning, a news that we haven't just yet given on non-durable goods, right? But well, then what do we see? An increase or at the same price, rubber duckies. And then what happens when the tariffs go in? Well, then productions, right, or product chain manufacturers do not produce as much. So even if Walmart wanted to import those rubber duckies, right, well, then they won't be able to import as much. So they never get produced, they never get shipped, they never get tariffed, if that makes sense, right? So there's a little ups and downs in here. Of course, it is not a law, but usually that's how what we see, those two situations. So we'll see how that plays out, because I mean, we are seeing now the results, and I would say, of the non-produced, non-tariffied products, right? So a drop of 19.8%, I would say that actually is nothing. I was expecting something a little bit bigger and more alarming. Also remember that I am expecting the spending numbers, right? So how is the U.S. people spending their money and how they're making it? So that will be very interesting, because if we start seeing that they keep expanding it on outside products, well, on tariffied products, well, we can count with even those tariff, right? Today, they keep coming in, and then to see those those goods, imported goods, increase back again without any tariff being applied. In that case, he's making pressure on the outside companies, which they can make pressure on their country, which can make just give their hand to bend, right? But we'll see, because China, very, very strong on what it does. All right, so just a little bit of breakdown on how or why is this important, how they change of products and actions and reactions plays out in here. So if you don't know, if you didn't know, now you do. All right, so on today's episode of the trade wars, once again, man, and I tell you, these are the news. It's quite remarkable that President Donald Trump, right, or President Trump, effectively just said the U.S.-China trade deal is not working. Yet, stock market, and this is important, guys, stock market futures are down less than a 0.3%. What does that mean? Well, then let's just give it a second in here, right? This was followed by a U.S. trade representative Greer stating that the U.S. is very concerned with Chinese non-compliance on trade. So they're actually either going around or not being fair, as they might say. All right. In April, the S&P 500 will be down -5 or -5% on its headlines. Has the trade war lost its shock effect? I don't think so. All right, I don't think so. We just explained all of the possibilities in here. The point is, it's not that it's lost its effect. Is that we are right now at a point of fast information traveling, right? I mean, come on, a tweet that makes the market moves, right? So that's why I started with that, right? And then it gets to the US within seconds. There's no chain of delay in the news, right? So what happens is that it's not losing its effects. It's just that the effects are being diluted by the speed of the reactions. All right. So what's happening here? And this is part of what I believe, by the way. I will be giving you guys maybe in next classes a couple of like inside perspective on how and why it happens. But I believe that they adjust as they go. So they find loopholes. They export to other countries that they can re-import into the States, right? So they do a couple of stuff. They reduce their margins. They adjust product quality, so on and so forth. So the economy keeps rolling with whatever up there those guys are doing. This is not sustainable, and that's why I don't believe that the trade war has lost its shock effect. But, well, its shock effect, yes, because they go like, oh, man, all right, we know what to do, right? We already had it. Rather than before, we already produce a bunch of stuff, right? That then we either liquidate or, well, then we keep it at a loss. Now that things go very fast, well, then they go shut down the machines, right? Well, cut out the production, right? All right, this is going to be the last thing that we sell, and let's see how that plays out, right? Well, now, instead of the next production moving into the States before we sign paperwork, before we pay tariff, the excessive tariff, right? Before we go through aduanas or any inter-country lawship that we might have in their imports, exports, offices, right? Instead of all of that paperwork that could take days, well then, they just pick up the phone, and what they do, hey, Spain. By the way, have you heard that? China exporting to Spain, all right? So, hey, Spain, I have some spare parts in here, man. So, would you like them? And Spain goes, all right, can I import them to the US? And they go, yep, and this is the paperwork that we use. You can use it if you buy me this amount per month, right? Your total, your possible exports that we had, they were projected at this minus a change of direction, this, and that. So, well then, I would say that now, because the information moves so fast, well, we're seeing the tariff war acting just like a strainer full of holes, all right? So, but again, sustainability, well, it's going to be more expensive to push new produced products, right? Because they're not already sitting there in a warehouse ready to be absorbed at a loss, right? So new production will say, all right, you know what? After this, we're gonna be doing an increase of price action, of price per product. So you already have your gains. You're just cutting down on your gains, and you keep exporting to the States or to whatever other country, right? So sustainable with the same prices, I don't think so. the impact of the price rise might not be as dramatic as we expected, but well, then we'll see that just triangulation taking a little longer and just slightly more expensive. Alexander, Frank did thank. What is up, my friend? Crypto Jeff, what's up, brother? Roaming Brave, what is up, my friend? Welcome. All right, so let's see what else we have on the news side before we move on. US good falls. All right, we already have seen those numbers. Perfect, we already have seen those numbers. And finally, well, we already have seen all of this. So I think it's time to go over a couple of charts, guys, because Bitcoin, well, Bitcoin getting to the places that we were expecting to, especially if you were tracking yesterday with all of the classes that we gave throughout the day. So other than that, let's move into the charts. All right, let me find my charts. Here it is. So there's something interesting looking at Bitcoin. Guys, let me give you the heads up in here because yesterday I found out something. All right. It's not to be alarming. I don't want to be that alarmist. Instead, the bad news or the warning news, let's get started with why Bitcoin might not go to hell. All right. So because we have a large order block, a loud order block right down there holding 95% bullish, right? But, let me show you now, what am I looking for? All right, let me zoom out here as much as I can, as I do on the classes, the trading with OC, right? We zoom out as much as we can. Let me show you how I always begin my analysis, all right? How I do my brain refresh. First of all, I set a trend line. Guys, where is your trend broken? Your trend is broken when your trend line is broken, right? Thus, the breakout retest, all right? So it's not about your breakout, it's about your retest. You'll find yourself above the zero line. Look for that flip of the ribbon, and up we go with Valhalla, right? There's a couple of things in here that they look like broadening wedges, falling triangles, whatever you want to call them, right? Whatever you want to call them, but they usually are flat, flat pause of whatever continuation. In this case, since we are bullish, of bullish continuation, right? That's why we call this thing in here. There's another concept that I want to touch on before I show you what I just found in the charts, all right? So let's go and find another bullish trend, all right? And this is a perfect example. Let me use this line for reference, all right? And then adjust my next line so we can kind of like a piggyback on this, all right? This is kind of like a broadening wedge. Let me just do this just for the sake of the example, all right? So we measure that movement, right? We have the breakout, right? It's not about the breakout, it's about your retest, flat pause of bullish continuation, breakout, flat pause of bullish continuation, breakout, flag, or flat pause of bullish continuation. We have some, let me make this big because I see I'm just pushing chunky candles away too much in here, and we need to bring him closer. All right, we have a volatility zone, right? We had a double top area, and we have a breakout retest. Where is the trend broken? When the trend line is broken, right? Something that I wanted to show you here, other than this, it is a fake out, all right? Let me show you how a fake out looks like. Let me search for one really quickly, and I found one. All right, so this is my upper trend line, and this is my lower trend line. Look at that. I would have said, right? Let me just adjust this. All right, I think that's it. Where is your trend broken? When your trend line is broken. Technically, we broke the trend line. The trend was broken until we closed back inside the channel, right? So break back inside, big body candle. It's not about your breakout. It's about your retest, flip of the ribbon above the zero line, and off we go. You see that? So I want you guys to keep this in mind, and I want you guys to keep this other one. These other two, by the way. This one here, let me just get rid of this so we can see it clearly. This one here and this one here on your mind. All right. So now that we have talked about that, let's go to the charts and see how the price of Bitcoin is doing. All right. Let me see if I can just double click it. There we go. So it's not about the breakouts, it's about the retest. Off we go. When is the trend broken? When the trend line it's broken, right? So what's happening here, guys? And look at this trend line. This is not any trend line. Support, 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 and not support. You see that? Not only that, we are above the previous highs. Could this be a 4-day double top? Could this be the M pattern that when we talked about, remember this, we have this movement. I told you guys, because of market cap, I believe that we could be having, that this is what we're trying to form. The same thing that we see on a flat pause of bullish continuation. The same thing that we see on a flat pause of bullish continuation. It's just that at this point in history, right, we just don't have the enough market cap to hold the price action, and then it just drops. So, did we have a double top in here? Are we forming a double top now? When was the trend broken? When the trend line was broken, right? Let's go to the 4 hours. Is the trend line broken? Of course it is. But again, don't panic. Don't panic on me. Don't go and sell it all. I'm not sending you to sell anything. All right. But let me read the chatty here. I see Mohammed. Whoa, Mohammed, what is up, my friend? Morning, Jose. Greetings from Indonesia. Greetings, my friend. Nice to have an Indonesian member. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the shout out, bro. That's awesome. Who else we got here? Oh my God, totally missed this. Morning, Harp. What is up, brother? Welcome, my friend. Welcome. All right. So what is up next? Well, right here, what we got. This is what we're going to be starting with. A trend line. We have, sadly, a lower high. Do we have a lower low? Now we do, guys. Now we do. All right. So I know it's getting intense. Let's not fall for it just now. All right. But now we do have a lower low. Could this be a fake out? I want you guys to remember one of the things that we talked about. This one here. Look at how long it took us. It took us forever and ever, right? But we did a range. What was the lowest part of that range based on this movement? Let's measure that. And remember, when we measure a movement, we go from the very top to the very bottom, and we look at 2 points. Half point first and 1/3 then, right? So now that we know that, let's try to measure it from here to there. The first thing that we look for, it is half point zone. What is my half point zone? And let's redraw it. Let's use another tool here. This is my half point zone. And look at that. Nailed it. Fake out, but nailed it, nailed it, nailed it. You see that? All right. If I know I'm repeating it, guys, but if we're going to be getting higher, somewhere around 120, 130, 200K Bitcoin, we need to range or we need to retrace. What's going to be the possible retracement? But hold on your horses. We're not going to be talking about full-fledged retracement just now, but the worst case scenario will be somewhere around 92. Not that scary, but that is a 50% retracement from the last pull up to the upside. All right, so nothing that big of a deal. So what are we going to be doing at this point? Well, trading the day on the 4 hours. So what do we have? What is the next thing that we could be expecting on a support of this magnitude? Because that is dynamic reactor, right? Remember, not only we have a support in there by dynamic reactor, we also have a what is it? A loud, freakishly huge, ginormous order block, right? So, hola, what is up, Richie Classic in the house? What is up, my friend? Nice to have you around, brother. All right, so we have a loud order block here. We are basically having flip of the ribbon. Are you buying? I am buying. I'm going to be buying today. Or even Monday. Haven't quite decided just yet. Why? I want to see how that daily close candle closes. Of course, it's going to be bearish, but look at that. It is a doji candle, right? Or it's an indecision candle in here, right? What happens when we have a big candle indecision? Usually, we can start looking for one pattern that we learned on trading with OC. Usually, we see those indecision candles at the top, called a star, right? Or at the bottom, also called a star. Usually we ignore, in this case, we have two of those, but look at that. We have one big candle, an indecision, and then a pump up candle, all right? Well, I know the next thing, well, we went all the way up high to dynamic reactor, and then we fall hard on our face, but we don't have some resistance at the top right now. There are none. We cannot, well, we can predict with Fibonacci, right? But at this point, we have none so far, right? So what am I expecting? I want to see, or I want to wait to see how that candle closes. So let's go and let's check that out. So if we close as a doji, I think I have a bigger or a better prediction for Bitcoin, which let me make this a little bit more chunky, just so I can draw on top of this. Come on, there we go. And maybe we can do the next candle a little bullish or more bullish, right? So it's not about the breakout, it's about your retest, first resistance. We're still holding above the zero line, but if we make this reversal in here, we're absolutely gonna be reversing right there, right? We also have a order block here, although it's soft, it is somewhere around 103. Remember the 50% retracement that was at 93, not that far away if we talk about the daily. What is 93? Well, then all the way here to dynamic reactor. So the worst case scenario will be 93, but I believe because we are greening here, and it's not about your breakout because we're breaking through previous resistance from a range, right? This huge ass range. It's not about the breakout, it's about your retest, and up we go to somewhere 120, all right? So not because we have lost the trend line at this point, it is all over. Remember that we can also be looking for a slight ranging here before we get to the next quarter or before we start looking into what could be happening here, all right? So guys, we're running out of time. So thank you so much for joining. I know it took a lot to explain, but I want to touch on the tariff at this point and also prepare you for Bitcoin. What I'm seeing, expect a little bit of volatility throughout today. Hopefully it is a great day for you guys too. And as always, guys, see you guys tomorrow. It's Friday.
We'll keep that front line covered, even when we're dead and gone. We'll find a way to keep going, cause we gon' keep on rolling out the wheels flow low. I know you hungry for knowledge, that's profit appetite. Classes in session, this for the Army Piper acolytes. Trade flag at the soul, train ready. What a line from OCI, from a Mexican spaghetti, yo. Crunch crypto with a deep dive to reject dime. And if you like the visual powered by Tar Prime, then you were part of that not a source bond. But if you have step, fall back to offline. We'll keep that front line covered, even when we're dead and gone. We'll find a way to to keep going, cause we gon' keep on rolling out the wheels follow. Sound off.
To get rhythm, the ZTS rhythm. Rip it, Alexandra.
Yeah, that's my love. Now you know what I mean.
That was awesome, dude.